Good evening, students. So, I am welcoming all you for the third session. Today I am going to discuss about the Unit 1, Chapter 1, the living world, which come under the first PUC syllabus. So, let us know what is said to be a living being. The living being is the one which has the ability to reproduce, show metabolism, growth, response to the stimulus, etc. All these, what I mentioned so far, is not seen in non-living things. Which are the characteristic features of the living things, which are not found in the non-living things? The characteristics of the living beings can be listed like this. First of all, the growth and development. What is said to be a growth? Growth is a permanent, irreversible change. There is increase in the height and weight of an individual. It is a permanent, irreversible change. The growth in living beings is internal and is called interoception. So, this is the term, interoception. This is the type of growth found in living beings, and the growth is internal. The growth in living beings is of two types, determinate and indeterminate. Determinate in the sense, the growth occurs up to certain age of the individual and later on it stops. For example, the animals. For example, a man grows up to the age of about 22 or 23 years like that, and later on there will be no growth at all. Whereas the indeterminate growth is found in plants. The plants show both determinate and indeterminate growth. The determinate growth you find in the leaves and fruits, whereas indeterminate growth is confined to the tip of the shoot and even the root. Throughout life, the plant used to grow. So hence, with reference to the leaves and that of fruits, it shows determinate growth. With reference to the root tip and the shoot tip or stem tip, it is said to be the indeterminate growth. The development involves series of changes which occurs during the lifespan of an individual. So, this development and the growth you do not find in the non-living things. In the non-living things, of course, the growth is said to be external. It is caused due to the deposition of the matter found in the environment. I hope you know that soil is nothing but the withered rocky material. The rock grows, but that growth is external and it is caused due to the deposition of the matter found in the environment. And such a growth what we find in the non-living things is called accretion growth. So this is the difference in the living and the non-living things with reference to the growth and development. So growth in the living things is internal and is called interoception, whereas in non-living things it is external and is called accretion growth. Then the second one is said to be the reproduction. What do you mean by a reproduction? It is the ability of an individual to produce its offsprings of its own kind. Or in other words, production of new individual of its own kind is called reproduction. And it is essential for the continuation of a species. If at all there is no reproduction, remember, the individual on one or the other day become extinct. Reproduction is said to be of two types. One is asexual reproduction and other is sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction occurs by the formation of the spores or the bud or by the fragmentation of the individual body. For example, the fungi multiply in larger scale by means of spores. Here in asexual reproduction, there is no formation of gametes and there is no involvement of both male and female individual like that. The fungi multiply in a larger scale by the production of the asexual bodies called spores. And for example, the hydra undergoes reproduction by budding. The bud forms and later on the bud grows, cut off from its parental body and become an independent the individual. That is the asexual reproduction. And even in the planaria, for example, suppose this is said to be a planaria. If at all the body of the planaria is cut into many fragments or segments like that, each segment will develop into a new individual. This is also a process of what? Asexual reproduction by fragmentation. These are some of the examples for asexual reproduction. Then, what is sexual reproduction? The sexual reproduction occurs by the formation of the gametes like the sperm from male and egg from the female. The sexual reproduction involves biparental. That means here the new individual has both father and mother. But in asexual reproduction, it is uniparental. No father and mother, only one individual constitute the parent. So, the sexual reproduction occurs in the higher organisms of all the vertebrates and even many of the invertebrates. So, including man. Such type of reproduction you don't find in the non-living things. That is the one. Then comes metabolism. What is metabolism? The sum total of biochemical reactions what occur in the body of an organism is called metabolism. Metabolism involves two processes, that is anabolism and catabolism. Anabolism and catabolism. Anabolism is a constructive process wherein simple forms becomes a complex one. For example, in case of the plants, during photosynthesis, the carbon dioxide and water combine together form the glucose. So that is constructive process, thereby the weight of an individual is increased. Catabolism is a destructive process wherein a complex substance is get broken down into the simpler ones. For example, the respiration. So during respiration, the glucose is get metabolized or broken down into carbon dioxide and water. Hence, catabolism is a destructive process. Example is the respiration, whereas anabolism is a constructive process. Example is photosynthesis. No photosynthesis, of course, no food on the globe itself. So the phenomenon that is said to be the metabolism is not found in non-living things. Then comes organization. For example, any organism, you take it for granted. In protozoa like that of amoeba is composed of only one cell, that is cellular organization. It is composed of only one cell, not cellular, it is an acellular organism. For example, you take sponges, it is composed of many cells but not tissues, and hence these are cellular forms and this is acellular forms. Then, if we take the hydra or coelentrates like that, it is the tissue grade organisms. That means here there are many cells and even many tissues, but not organs. So from the hydra onwards or from coelenterate onwards, all are said to be the organ grade or organ system grade of organization like that. Based upon whether they are acellular or cellular or tissue grade or organ grade or organ system grade of the organization is called as organization. We are example for the organ system grade of organization. Remember, cell is the structural and functional unit of the body. Many cells together form a tissue. Many tissues together form organ. And many organs together form the organ systems like the digestive system, excretory system, circulatory system, etc. Many such organ systems together form a body, that too a complex body. No such organization is found in non-living things. Then, response to stimuli. Response to stimuli is said to be a characteristic feature of only animals. For example, suppose we keep our hand on an hot plate. All of a sudden we are going to withdraw our hand. That is a sort of what? Response to stimuli, which is nothing but irritability or excitability. In plants, there is response, but it is called as a movement. For example, if you touch a touch-me-not plant, the leaves are get to be drooped down. That is a kind of response to the stimulus, that is the touch. It is sensitive to touch. And such a response to stimuli is said to be found among the animals. And some plants show what? Movements, but they are not actually the response to stimuli as like that of the animals. Why the animals respond? This is because of their nervous system. Whenever there is nervous system, naturally an organism or an animal respond to the stimulus. Suppose anybody prick your finger with a needle, whether you feel happy or whether you withdraw your hand, naturally all of a sudden we withdraw our hand. That is a kind of response to stimuli. Such response to stimuli is not found in non-living things. The next one is said to be the adaptation. What do you mean by an adaptation? Adaptation is an ability of an organism to adjust with the surroundings. Remember, if at all any organism do not show any sort of adaptation, it is not possible for it to survive in its environment. According to the changes in the environment, there should be a corresponding change in the organism. For example, during summer, there is said to be the more heat in the environment. Naturally, in response to that one, our body sweats. Sweating is nothing but a phenomenon that is helpful in the elimination of the heat from the body. For example, during the winter season, so due to the fall in temperature, naturally the body temperature comes down. In order to compensate it, naturally there is shivering of the body. This shivering of the body helpful in what? Generating the energy. Energy, as you know, is nothing but the form of heat. So, heat is said to be the form of energy, as you are aware, and that is helpful in raising up what? Body temperature and adjust to the environment. That is what is called adaptation. Such adaptation you can see even in plants and even in animals. Based upon such adapting nature, we are going to classify the plants into xerophytes, those which can survive in the dry conditions. Mesophyte, those which survive in the moderate conditions. And then hydrophytes, those which can survive in water. And then epiphyte, those which can they grow on other plants, like that. So the adaptation is very essential for any organism to survive in its environment. And such adaptation you can't see in the non-living things. Then homeostasis. What do you mean by this homeostasis? Tendency to maintain the internal stable environment of the body is called homeostasis. So tendency to maintain internal stable environment, almost stable environment. So whatever the conditions of the external environment, our body has a mechanism to maintain almost constant internal environment. Say for example, our body temperature is said to be around 37 or 37.5 degrees Celsius. Whether you measure it in during summer or during winter, like that. And even the pH of the blood is said to be about 7.35. So it almost remains constant. So such an ability to maintain the constant internal environment is called homeostasis. The lifespan and the death. Remember, each and every living organism has its own lifespan. So each and every organism born, grows, develops, they undergo reproduction, become aged, and ultimately die. In the organism, this is said to be a natural, the stages, that is born, grown, develops, reproduction, become aged, and die. And such a lifespan and death is not found in non-living things. So from this growth and development up to lifespan and death, these are all said to be the characteristic features what we can observe in the living forms, not in non-living things. Or in other words, all of them are pertaining to the living beings. Now, after knowing this, let us know about the diversity in the living world. What do you mean by this diversity? Now it is called as the biodiversity. Biodiversity means it is the sum total of varieties of all life forms on earth. Or simply we can define all varieties of life on earth can be referred as the biodiversity. Remember, the biodiversity is said to be a latest word coined by two scientists by name Walter and Rosen in 1985. Today, each and everyone knows the importance of the biodiversity. If at all the biodiversity is not managed, naturally there is the ecological imbalance leading to many disasters like either the flood or the storm or earthquake, etc. Now, the next is said to be what is taxonomy or systematic biology. Taxonomy deals with the study of an individual with reference to its identification, naming and classification. Suppose a new individual is found, it should be identified what it is, whether it is a plant or animal or any other thing like that. Then it should be named and then properly it should be classified. And Such a branch of biology can be referred as taxonomy or systematic biology. Now let us know about the binomial nomenclature. What do you mean by a binomial nomenclature? Binomial nomenclature in the sense it may be defined as the scientific naming of an animal or a plant by two names. Scientific method of naming a plant or animal by two names is called binomial nomenclature. And this was introduced by a scientist by name or taxonomist by name Carolus Linnaeus, who is considered as father of taxonomy. In the binomial nomenclature, which are the two names you come across? They are the biological names, not the general names. These two biological names is said to be the one generic name and the other specific name. And the names are given as per the rules of ICBN and ICZN, International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. And this is International Code for Zoological Nomenclature. According to these rules, the name should be given scientifically, and such names will never change in any language. It is as good as the proper noun, or as like that of a name of a person. So, for example, for mango, the biological name is the Magnifera indica. The Magnifera is the generic name and indica is the specific name. And there is another one, that is, generic name should be always written in capital letter and specific name should be in small letter. There are some universal rules as per ICBN and ICZN, which are those universal rules. First one is, the biological names of any individual should be in Latin language and should be written in italics. The second one, the first name is generic name and the second name is specific name. For example, in Magnifera indica, Magnifera is the generic name and indica is the specific name. The next rule is, whenever the biological name, for example, the Magnifera indica for mango or Homo sapien for man is handwritten, then both the names should be underlined like this, if at all written by hand. Then the generic name is always written with capital letter. It should start with capital letter. Not the entire name should be in capital letters. The beginning letter should be capital. Whereas specific name, the beginning letter is written in small letter. If at all the author wants to add his name, then it should be written only at the end of the biological name in an abbreviated form, if at all the author name is lengthy. Say for example, Magnifera indica was given by Carolus Linnaeus. In the beginning itself, I told you he was the father of taxonomy. Suppose his name is to be included in the biological name of this mango, Magnifera indica, then it should be written. The name of the author should be written at the end in an abbreviated form. Then it should be read like this: Magnifera indica Linn. That means Carolus Linnaeus. The another one is the Homo sapien for man. That name was also introduced or coined by Carolus Linnaeus. Then you have to write Homo sapien Linn. Linn stands for Carolus Linnaeus. And the another one is Rana tigrina. That is nothing but a frog. And the name was coined by Dodd. D-A-U-D. Dad. Here it should be written at the end, Rana tigrina Dad. Like this, the author names can be added only at the end of the binomial nomenclature. It should not be prefix, it can be suffix in the abbreviated form. These 5 are the universal rules of binomial nomenclature as per ICBN and ICZN like that. So the biological nomenclature is helpful in understanding an individual at the international level. Thank you one and all. In the next session I will take another chapter.